Well, hey everybody, this is Rick. I'm coming at you today from my sick room here at home because I've tested positive for COVID. Most of you know that already. I appreciate the prayers, the calls and texts, and the concern for me and my family. It feels like a bad cold, really. And if it weren't for the germ, I'd want to be about my everyday doings. I know that's not possible right now, and so here I am in quarantine. But that doesn't mean we can't study the Bible a little bit together. And so I was thinking today about the situation that the whole world seems to be in right now. A lot of times when we're going through these difficult situations, whether it's because of our recent election or because of the pandemic or circumstances that flow from that, maybe financial problems or family illnesses or whatever situation that we seem to be going through. Sometimes we have the same question that Job did in the Old Testament, and that question is why? Why me, God? Why does this have to happen to me? Well, that's not an unusual circumstance. That's not an unusual thing to have happen when we're going through difficult times. The Bible does tell us that the things that we're faced with are not common to man. In other words, God's not singling anybody out. We all go through difficult times. Probably we won't face anything like Job did, but that doesn't mean that the problems that we face aren't real. And so Job, although he never sinned against God, he did question why. And the Bible says that Job was answered in Job chapter 38 by God. And I thought we might look at a few passages together here. Job chapter 38, verse number 1, the Bible says, "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth counsel by words without knowledge?" You know what God is pointing out here to Job is you only see a tiny portion of what's going on. We never have every bit of knowledge that we could have, so we're always then, as human beings, operating on partial knowledge. And that's true when we question God about the circumstances in our lives. I don't have all the answers. Job didn't have all the answers. But God wanted Job to know that he didn't have all the information either. Job was saying to God, "Why did you do this to me?" Well, we have the behind the scenes knowledge that it wasn't God that was doing those things to Job. It was the devil. And so Satan is at work in our lives too. We don't have all the knowledge. We don't know everything that's going on. But we do know that God is going to be there for us, and he's always going to be caring for us. And so, in a sense, we're all kind of like Job when we question God. We don't have all the knowledge. He goes on to say to Job in verse number 3, "Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me." You see, we're the ones who are accountable to God. God's not accountable to us. He doesn't owe us the answers. He doesn't owe us explanations. However, the reverse is true. We are accountable to God. And God says, you know what, you're going to ask the question why? You better pull up your britches and tighten your belt a notch, because you're about to have to give account for me. Where wast thou, verse 4, when I laid the foundations of the earth? That's a good question, isn't it? Where was Job? He wasn't around. Nobody was when God laid the foundations of the earth. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Well, Job didn't have an answer for that. Job wasn't there to help God. God didn't need Job's help. And that's the way God continues to be today. God is God whether we recognize him or not. And so God doesn't need our help. He doesn't have to. He's not on the hook to give us answers either. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest, or who has stretched the line upon it? Especially think about those questions back in Job's day. They didn't have technology. They didn't have satellites and airborne cameras that could help us help us see what the world really is. All Job could see was what his eyes, could perceive around him. And God asked him the question, just how big is this world? Have you ever stretched a line upon it? Who has? And of course, Job didn't have the answers to that. God knew, though. God has the answers to all these things. And so God had the answer to these questions. Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened, or who hath laid the corner stone thereof? Before we understood gravity and the planetary systems, the solar system, and how all that works, God was asking Job, what's this world built on? God knew, but Job didn't know. We still, scientists today, don't have all the answers, but I guarantee this, God does have all the answers. God knows everything. He says, whereupon are the foundations fastened, or who laid the cornerstone thereof, when all the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for glory? I think he's talking about here the angelic beings, the spiritual beings that God created, to witness this grand creation that he spoke into existence, this physical creation. And the point here is to Job, you don't have all the answers, and I do, but I don't owe them to you. I'm not accountable to you. You're accountable to me. So let's just keep that in mind. We're the ones accountable to God. We're the ones who are going to have to give God an answer to why we've made the choices that we've made, why we have lived in such a fashion as we have, and God's not on the hook for answers to us. Again, I appreciate all the prayers on my behalf. I appreciate those of you who have dropped off food and offered up prayers and thought about me and my family. The hardest part is really the quarantine and having to stay here in my room when the Lord's work needs to be done out there in the world. But we'll get through this. We'll move on, and I appreciate your prayers and your concern. And we'll see you next time.